Hey, what's up guys? Level Up here. I went ahead and started a new PlayStation Network account to do YouTube on because too many haters were following me around and sending me hate mail messages because I was beating them. So I made a gamertag that was somewhat confusing and kind of like Crazy Eye, where one time you look at it and it can look a little bit different than the next time you look at it just because your brain processes it a bit differently. So I'm a recruit. I have nothing unlocked here. So I'm on the Russian team, and I'm gonna change my settings here real quick because immediately the sensitivity was annoying. But I'm using the AK-74M for the assault class on the Russian team, and I gotta say that getting back to basics and using a gun without any attachments can really sort of give you a sense of what it's capable of, and I think that the AK-74 is a more capable gun than a lot of people give it credit for. This especially is true in long-range engagements, when your accuracy really can count for something, and in close quarters you are going to struggle to beat weapons like the M16A3, but that's just simply because the rate of fire is higher, not because you are a worse player. This gun shoots at around 650 rounds per minute, which is slow. But its muzzle velocity is 600 meters per second, which I'm sure increases with the addition of the heavy barrel, which would probably be a pretty darn good attachment for this gun, because long-range engagements are really where it sort of excels. Its maximum range is 900 meters, which you shouldn't be getting into 900 meter engagements with this weapon anyway. It fires the 5.45 by 39 millimeter round that the smaller caliber of Kalashnikov weapons fire. I wish that DICE had decided to add the 7.62 version of the gun and sort of give the Kalashnikovs and made the SCAR in the assault class, but to give certain assault rifles more damage versus rate of fire. Its reload times are 2.1 seconds on a short reload and 3.1 seconds on a long reload, which is a little slow, but it's not too bad. It's only about 0.6-ish seconds longer than the M16 in the long reload, and around 0.3 seconds longer in a short reload, which means that you're not going to notice as much of a performance decrease as some people would have you believe that you would. It's just all around a pretty darn good gun. Its recoil pattern is 0.28 up, 0.2 left, 0.3 right. This is just very minimal. You don't really need a foregrip. This AEK that I'm picking up here is a pretty darn nice gun, but I don't live with it for very long. Its recoil decrease per second is 18, just like regular guns, and its spread zoomed is 0.2, just like a regular weapon. Now, people like to talk about how much of a disadvantage you are putting yourself at in long range with a foregrip, and I would like to say that this is not entirely true. What it does is it increases your spread by 0.1 versus your standard ADS spread. But you also have to think about this. Your spread increase per round is also 0.1. So all that this means is that if you take one more round off of your burst of automatic fire, you're going to go ahead and compensate for that spread loss. Another thing to really point out is the fact that this gun has the lowest first shot recoil multiplier of any of the assault rifles that I know of, at only 1.5x. This is even less than the M416, which is an incredibly effective gun, and that's probably my favorite assault rifle, and let alone probably my favorite gun in the game, period. So the enemy team was posting up in the warehouse across the way, and I'm not a huge fan of people who like to camp like this. It just sort of leaves a bad taste in my mouth, especially whenever I realize how toxic the Battlefield community has become over the years. It's sort of interesting to notice how you can tell how different players play the game, and you can most likely tell what game they played before Battlefield. If they play sort of just aggressively not assisting the team a whole lot, they're most likely a Call of Duty player. And I don't mean to sound like a Battlefield elitist, I just wish that the Call of Duty players would try a wee bit harder to participate in the teams over themselves. Another thing to note about Call of Duty players is that they're usually going to just use the guns that are the best and never challenge themselves. I get bored just using I get bored using my 416. It's an awesome gun, and you can just own with that weapon. And that guy right there is probably called a COD player too. But you get to have these cool moments just killing everything with those guns, and that's fine. But if you don't ever challenge yourself, you're never going to improve your skill level as a player. Rest assured that you're most likely going to actually lose some talent if you are just using the best guns in the game, like the AEK, the M16A3, and the M416. If you use these guns all the time, you're going to just slip. Using the AK-74 is a great way to hone your senses, so to speak. The fact that it shoots so slow and does the same amount of damage as the rest of the assault rifles really kind of makes you put yourself in a position where you know that you are at an advantage that this gun has. One of those advantages is long-range accuracy. I'm not a huge fan of this PSO 4x scope, but honestly, it's not a terrible attachment to have on the AKs. I've never even used it on anything but this gun before, but honestly, after using it on that AK, I'm considering using it on my 416 once or twice. I can't imagine that it would just decrease from my performance just because it is a bit bulky, but it's not quite as obstructive as the M145 3.4 times zoom scope, and really that sight was designed more for the light machine guns in the game, which is obvious in its size. So we finally pushed him out of this warehouse, and it's sort of an interesting way that the map moves around. This map, it always feels like the other team is camping, and I am subject to camper rage. I get rage from corner campers or anybody who just kind of hangs around in the same part of the map the entire game and never really moves. I can get a little bit annoyed by that because they're most likely just playing a defensive position and they're most likely just protecting their precious KDR. I don't really care about my KDR that much. It usually does not wind up being terrible, so I'm not going to complain in any way. I think I did like a 2.65, 1.65 or something at the end of my first match on my new account, and actually my first match in a day, so not too bad. But this map just moves around from warehouse to warehouse, and one team will always be on the outside, and the other team will always be moving warehouse to warehouse, and they will be on the inside. My team wound up being the team that was always on the outside in most cases, and that was sort of hard to do with the AK-74 because you have to play very aggressively, and you need sort of a gun that supports an aggressive gameplay style. This gun kind of wants to play defensively, and I'm making a good example of that. I'm not necessarily camping. I am eliminating my targets before I push in, because I know that as soon as I get in there, I'm going to be at a disadvantage to all of my opponents. The way that this gun just shoots compared to the M16 is enough to sort of discourage anybody from winning an engagement. And especially in a situation where you're just kind of rushing in, you don't exactly know what's going on. That's kind of what's happening right here. I don't exactly know where any of my opponents are. I'm just sort of placing the pieces of the puzzle together as I'm rushing. Admittedly, I would have rather even had an M4 carbine in this situation than the AK, but the AK is a pretty darn iconic rifle. I just wish that they had left us with the AK-47 versus the lightened up 74. Really the only big difference is the fact that they replaced the grip and buttstock with a composite material that is, the best I understand, it's sort of like a mixture between a polymer and a fiberglass. I believe it's called nylon fiber, but it gives a good balance of lightweightness and extreme durability. It's really one of the most durable materials that you can use for something to that purpose. Admittedly, the wood would be a bit heavier, and I wish that gun weight was actually a factor in Battlefield, because then certain guns would would be more difficult to fire over extended periods. I think that maybe a good way to go around this would be to make heavier guns have more sight sway while you're ADSing, and especially more sight sway if you are walking while you're ADSing. This means that weapons like the M4 carbine would sway a lot less than, say, an F2000, which can weigh up to around 10 pounds loaded. It's a pretty darn heavy gun as best I understand it. And light machine guns like the M240 Bravo, 25-pound gun, would not be very lightweight, and that would be, it would make them more difficult to use, but I think that they could go ahead and increase your base spread with those guns, considering that they do actually have a longer barrel than assault rifles. I don't know why DICE decided to make the light machine gun so inaccurate. I understand their recoil patterns, but I do not understand why their base spread had to be 0.8. I believe is the base spread for the M249 and the 240. I also think that your spread should, your recoil rather, should decrease depending on what kind of position you are. If you are crouched, you should have the most loss of recoil as opposed to prone or standing. And moving should also increase your recoil a bit. I don't disagree with the decrease of accuracy while walking. I think that that was probably a good way to handle this. So we're still pushing into this warehouse. These guys are getting posted up pretty darn well, and at this point I would actually accuse them of playing a little campy. They haven't left that warehouse for several minutes now. There's been a couple of players that have left, but I've pushed in 3 or 4 times, and with really with nothing to show for it, and it can get kind of frustrating. There can be some rage-inducing moments, like being shot by that SKS, and the SKS to me is one of the most annoying guns in the game. It's a good gun, it's a fun gun to use, and you can just absolutely destroy with it. I just don't enjoy how people use it. He was using a zoomed optic with a bipod, and he was sitting there, and I guarantee you he's thinking to himself, wow, I'm a really good player for killing that guy like that. But the cold hard reality is that the SKS has basically no recoil to start with. The bipod is only going to further decrease its recoil, and all that this is going to do is just make it far more annoying for everybody else on the other team. Sure, your KDR can improve, but once again, you're not going to improve your skills by using an SKS. A better alternative would be to use a Mark II or perhaps even an M417. Those would be better guns for being able to say that you actually are good at the game. Now, as for the AK-74, this gun was interesting to use. It benefits greatly from the heavy barrel, and that 4x sight is not the most useful on the planet. But you have to take the good for the bad. Your long-range accuracy is further improved with a zoomed optic, and that's really the strong suit of this assault rifle. You definitely have to play to its strengths, and your attachments should reflect that. Now, because I am on a new account, the game put the foregrip on there for me, which is fine. I don't really want it, but I'm not angry enough to take it off later in the game once I die, because I keep forgetting about it, but it wasn't annoying to the fact where I was like, oh wow, my increase of spread by 0.1 is really significant. I'm absolutely annoyed by that, and even some big channels have sort of fallen to the level of saying stuff like this. The first channel that comes to mind is Level Cap. Level Cap is a very, very popular YouTube channel, and I don't mind saying that. But I also don't mind saying within the fact that his experience is kind of lucky. His YouTube channel just really sort of took off, and I think that it sort of left Rival X Factor and Matimio sort of just unappreciated. I'm not saying that their subscriber base isn't solid, just like Level Cap's, it's just not quite as large. And I don't really understand this, because honestly, I can get a little bit annoyed listening to his videos after a while. His voice is slightly annoying to me, and I think that he's kind of a PC, he's almost a PC elitist, he's not really, but I do think that he thinks he's better than he really is. admittedly, he's a really darn good player, and I don't want to receive any hateful comments just for kind of saying I don't think Level Cap is like the best guy in the planet. He's all right. He's really good at the game, but I don't really enjoy his videos as much as Matimio's. Admittedly, Matimio's voice is a little bit more annoying from time to time, but I feel like he has a lot more fun playing the game than Level Cap, and that to me can sort of make the difference between a good YouTuber and a bad YouTuber. Because we've all had those instances where we're watching somebody play the game, and if they're not enjoying it themselves, then their product is going to sound like they're not enjoying it themselves. Admittedly, playing the game as much as these guys do and as much as I do can get exhausting. It can get a little bit tiring, and it's really easy to get sort of tired of playing the game. Whenever you're playing the game 3, 4, even sometimes 5 or 6 hours a day, you have those rage-inducing moments, and it gets easier to get rage the longer that you play, because the longer that you've played, you probably have had one just really good game that sort of should set the pace for you, and then you just kind of get into some bad luck scenarios that make your KDR not look like what you want it to. This can be very rage-inducing, and also it can make people think that you're not as good as you are. I try not to judge the other team by their KDRs, because I know that luck is most likely part of my success. As the old phrase is, better lucky than good. I don't quite agree with that, especially in video games. I think that it's better good than lucky, because lucky can just make you an irritating person to play with. All in all, I had a pretty darn fun time playing the game tonight. I'm only gonna play this one game, but that's fine. I unlocked a trophy, got MVP, played pretty darn nice for a gun that I have not used in several months. Again, that gun is highly underappreciated, so is the PSO site. Really enjoyed the game. Playing on Firestorm, it always sort of just brings back why I really enjoy the old Battlefield games so much. The only reason that I really say that is because the map design itself kind of feels like something that would have been put into an older game, but it also has a new modern refreshment that I think was much needed. Well, I think that that's all that I have for you guys today. Be sure and like the video, give me a good thumbs up, because I'm hoping to sort of increase my subscriber base. But that's all that I got for you guys today. I'm Level Up here at On Point Gaming. Take it easy, guys.